In this video, we'll be discussing vertex form of a quadratic function, and this begins on page 245 of your textbook. So I'm going to walk through a couple of examples of the different pieces of information that you can find when a quadratic function is in vertex form, and as well as how to graph it. So my first example is y equals x plus 4 quantity squared. So when we were looking at our vertex form, HK, so I'm going to write HK is our vertex. And H here, though it reads plus 4, H is actually equal to negative 4 because it should be x minus something on the inside. So it's x minus negative 4, which turns into x plus 4. And then K, we actually don't see a K here. Alright, it's a hidden plus 0. So my vertex is negative 4, 0. And I'm going to go ahead and plot that point. Negative 4, 0. That is my vertex. And my axis of symmetry is always the x-coordinate of my vertex. So that means whatever points I have on the right side, I can reflect over that line and get points on the right side. Alright, and in addition to that, I know that A here in this situation, A, that's my number in front, my coefficient to that quantity, is equal to 1. So it doesn't flip my graph upside down with an x-axis reflection, and it doesn't stretch or shrink, it just remains the same. So in addition to this, I want to go ahead and make a t-chart. I'm going to go ahead, instead of writing y, I'll write f of x, and I'm going to write my function f of x equals x plus 4 squared, and I'm going to start plugging in some numbers. So negative 4 should be in the middle of my graph, so I probably want to do a negative 3, a negative 2, negative 1, 0, and then I'll reflect it. Right, negative 4 is 0. So if I plug in negative 3 here, f of negative 3, I have negative 3 plus 4 squared, and that turns into a positive 1 squared. So that is 1. Right, f of negative 2 comes negative 2 plus 4 squared. That is a positive 2 squared, which is equal to 4. Negative 1, f of negative 1, that's going to give me negative 1 plus 4 squared, which is 3 squared, which is 9. Alright, and 0 is going to give me 16. So I can reflect that over my axis of symmetry and find these 3 points, 1, 4, and 9. And you could do the math legwork with that as well and graph those. So I'm going to graph those points, and I'm going to have negative 3, 1, and negative 5, 1, and then I'm going to have negative 2, 4, and negative 6, 4. Alright, and that's enough to get a pretty good picture. If I wanted to plot my y-intercept, I could, but that's actually going to be out of my picture. Alright, and it should be a nice curve that opens up. Since a is positive, greater than 0, which means it opens up. Alright, so that is one example. I'm going to walk through another example that does have a different a and also has a k. So example number 2. I'm going to identify my parts here. A equals negative 2. That's going to tell me something. H equals a positive 1. And k equals negative 5. Alright, so since it's negative, it should open down and should actually be a vertical stretch, which means it gets more narrow. Alright, and my vertex, these two give me my vertex at 1, 5, which tells me my axis of symmetry is at x equals 1. So I'm going to go ahead and graph that. 1, 5, 2, 4, 5. And here is my axis of symmetry. So from this point, I can go ahead and do my lovely t-chart here. Alright, and I can put 1, 5 in the middle and find a couple of points on either side. So if I go to the left, 0, -1, -2, and on the right it would be 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to do f of 0. So I replace x using my substitution property with 0, and I get -2. 0 minus 1 is -1, and -1 squared is 1, minus 5, so that's -2 minus 5, which is -7. So 0, -7. And then I'm going to go ahead and do f of, this keeps popping up, f of -1. And that's -2. -1 minus 1 squared minus 5. -2, that's -1 minus 1 is -2, and -2 squared is 4 minus 5. So that's -8 minus 5, -13. Alright, now I can reflect those, and I should have enough to go ahead and graph it. It's 5 points. So 0, -7, 2, 4, 6, 7. And then those are going to be really off the graph. Alright, that one's a little bit tougher to graph because it is extremely narrow. Alright, if you guys have any questions on vertex form or how to graph it, how to find your vertex, please feel free to email me and ask me a question or see me before or after school. You should have a good number of practice problems to complete for homework, and I hope that you guys are able to piece together your vertex form, as well as maybe you do want to FOIL out these problems and put it into standard form. If you've got used to standard form, you can do either. So I'm going to post another video on how to change vertex and how to change your intercept forms into standard form so that you can use all three of the forms. So feel free to look for one of those other videos.